Before the words, before the flame, before we ever knew a name, you were the breath beneath our breath, the life that never tasted death. You spoke our consciousness to be formed from your own eternity, not distant dust, not born alone, but rising from your very throne. In you we live and move and stay, our being held in every way. You are our life, our breath, our song, the place where we have always belonged. Father, source of all, from you we rise, in you we fall, not into distance, not into fear, but into love that holds us near. Father, breath of all, our life, our strength, our all in all, every river, every flame flows from you and bears your name.
You are not the God we learn to fear, from broken stories passed down through years. You are the ground beneath our feet, the quiet truth our hearts repeat. You sealed us with your very life, before the striving for the fight.
You called us perfect, very good, alive in you as we always stood.
You declared your life as ours to share, our truest name, our deepest care.
Not earned by law, not bought by pain, but spoken once and still the same. Father,
Source of all,
from you we rise,
in you we fall,
not into distance, not into fear, but into love that holds us near. Father,
breath of all,
our life, our strength, our all in all, every river, every flame flows from you and bears your name. In you we move, in you we breathe, in you we are what we were meant to be. You shared your life and called it ours from the beginning through endless hours, forever and ever. We are one, no separation, only source and
source of all.
we rest within your endless call, not as strangers, not as slaves, but as your life fully awake. Our now, our always, our before it all. Every breath, every day returns to you unchanged.
From you we come,
In you we stay,
from you we live.
forever and ever. One.
Hello, family. Welcome to today's teaching. So, this will be a combination of Genesis 7, 8, and 9. Okay. In Genesis 5 and 6, we saw something crucial take place. Awareness is preserved quietly across cycles, while ego gradually becomes the governing center. Not suddenly, not maliciously, but progressively. As imagination becomes dominated by fear, control, and survival, life itself becomes unsustainable in that state. Not because God is angry, but because life cannot flourish when ego governs without awareness. That brings us to Genesis 7, 8, and 9. These chapters are often read as the moment where God finally loses patience and destroys the world. But if that were true, it would contradict everything we've already observed. What actually follows is not punishment, it is reset. Genesis 7, 8 and 9 describe what happens when life gently but decisively overwhelms distortion so that wholeness can be preserved. Water, flood, ark, rest, and covenant are not external events. They are inner movements of cleansing, stabilization, and realignment. Genesis 6 shows us why a reset becomes necessary. Genesis 7 to 9 shows us how life restores coherence. Not by annihilating awareness, but by carrying it safely through transition. As we move forward, we'll explore water as purification of the subconscious, the ark as preservation of essential life, Noah as rest and grounded awareness, emergence as renewed perception, and the covenant as integration, not control. Genesis 7 to 9 are not the continuation of violence. They are the continuation of care. Let's continue with clarity and allow the flood narrative to reveal what it has always been communicating, which is life restoring itself when ego can no longer lead. Genesis 7:1. The Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark." Lord capitalized Yahweh, the Father intervening to preserve alignment. Noah awakened Christ awareness. Ark, inner refuge, stabilized consciousness. Meaning, truth calls awakened awareness inward for protection. What this looks like in real life. This is the moment when someone who has awakened realizes not everyone can walk with them anymore. Certain conversations drain them. Some environments feel spiritually unsafe. They don't become arrogant, they become selective. You start pulling inward. You need silence. You stop oversharing truth with people who mock it. That's the ark. Containment. Containment of awareness. Genesis 7:2. Take 7 of every clean animal. Clean animals represent aligned instincts, healthy inner patterns. 7 is spiritual completeness, meaning preserve what is aligned and whole within you. Lived experience. You become intentional about what thoughts you entertain, what habits you keep, what nourishes your peace. Male and female. Male is initiating directive awareness. Female is receptive, responsive soul. Meaning, truth preserves inner balance. Awareness leading, soul responding. Lived experience. You stop forcing outcomes. You listen more deeply. You move from alignment, not pressure. Genesis 7:3. 7 also of the birds of the air. Birds represent thoughts, perceptions. Air is mental realm. 7. Purified thinking. Meaning, truth preserves elevated perception. Lived experience. Your thinking changes. Now you have less fear-based perception. You are less reactive. You are more spacious. To keep seed alive. Seed here is truth that reproduces life. Meaning, awakening protects what can multiply truth forward. In everyday life, this is where you guard your insight. You don't cast it everywhere. You let truth mature before sharing. Genesis 7:4, I will cause it to rain. Rain here is truth saturating consciousness. Meaning, truth begins to flood awareness. What this looks like in real life. Truth starts hitting you from every direction. Through books, conversations, sudden realizations, quiet inner knowing. Things you once believed no longer make sense. Teachings you once defended now feel hollow. You don't feel attacked, you feel overwhelmed by clarity. This is where people say, I can't unsee what I've seen. 40 days and 40 nights. 40 is full cycle of inner refinement. Days and nights, conscious and subconscious layers. Meaning, truth works through every level of being. In everyday life, this is where you process grief, anger, relief, joy, confusion, all at once. Genesis 7:6, Noah was 600 years old. This is not age. 6 here is human consciousness. 100 is maturity, meaning awareness has matured enough to withstand total restructuring. This is where you are no longer fragile in truth. You are rooted. You stop trying to convince others, to defend yourself, to debate your awakening. You let go of needing approval. Family may not understand. Friends may distance. You feel lonely, but grounded. That's the crossing. Noah and his sons entered the ark. Sons here is expressions flowing from awareness. Meaning, your thoughts, actions, and choices align with truth. This is where your life starts matching your insight. Genesis 7:8, clean and unclean animals. Unclean here is unrefined habits, old tendencies. Meaning, awakening doesn't deny shadow, it contains it. In everyday life, this is where you see your triggers without shame. They no longer rule you. You start noticing polarities within yourself. Peace plus discomfort. Clarity plus grief. Confidence plus vulnerability. Instead of rejecting one side, you allow both to exist without shame. You stop fighting yourself. This is deep healing. Genesis 7:9, 2 by 2. 2 here is balance, polarity. Meaning, truth integrates opposites rather than rejecting parts of self. In everyday life, this is where you stop fighting yourself. This is where healing deepens. Genesis 7:10-12, the fountains of the deep break open. Great deep here is subconscious programming. Broken up means surface for clearing. Meaning, hidden conditioning rises to be released. What this looks like in real life, this is the intense part. Old memories surface. Childhood wounds. Religious fear. Shame you didn't know you carried. Anger you never processed. This is where people often say, I don't know why I'm crying, but I need to. That's not regression. That's subconscious cleansing. Windows of heaven opened. Heaven is higher awareness. Windows represents access, revelation, meaning insight flows freely. In everyday life, this is where you have downloads, clarity, peaceful knowing. The Lord shut him in. Shut in here is sealed awareness, meaning truth stabilizes awakened consciousness. Lived experience. This is where old fears lose their grip. You can't go back even if you try. Old temptations don't hit the same. Old fears lose authority. Old guilt narratives can't hook you anymore. You don't feel forced, you feel sealed. This is stabilization. The ark was lifted above the earth. Lifted here is elevated perspective. Earth is old lived identity, meaning awareness rises above ego patterns. Lived experience. This is where you observe instead of react. Life doesn't control you anymore. Drama still exists. Pain still exists, but it doesn't define you. You can sit in discomfort without panic. You can witness others' ego without reacting. This is perspective. All the high heels covered. High heels here is pride, lofty mental constructs, spiritual ego. Covered is submerged under truth. This is when spiritual pride dies. I know better than everyone dissolves. Identity based on being special fades. Even your best ego constructs get submerged. You become humble. Genesis 7:21. All flesh died. Flesh here is false self, ego identity. Died here is lost authority, meaning the false self stops ruling. This is where you stop defining yourself by comparison or approval. You stop asking, who am I compared to others? Am I enough? Am I right or wrong? Those questions lose urgency. Not because you answered them, but because they no longer matter. That's ego death. Only Noah remained. Noah here is Christ awareness, meaning when illusion falls away, truth remains. After the storm, clarity remains, inner peace remains, truth remains. You realize this is who I've always been. Nothing essential was lost, only noise disappeared. The waters prevailed 150 days. 150 here is stabilization and integration, meaning truth settles before new expression emerges. Integration takes time. You don't rush back into old identities, old labels, old systems. You let truth settle. This is why awakened people value stillness. If you've ever come out of religion, ego, or false identity, you have lived Genesis 7. The flood wasn't distraction. It was truth, protecting what is real in you. Genesis 7 is not distraction. It is truth protecting your awakening. by washing away everything that could pull you back into forgetfulness. And this is why the Bible must be read symbolically. Because when read as it was intended, it reveals restoration, awakening, and truth, not the fear and violence literalism produces. Now let's move on to Genesis 8. Genesis 8 begins when the flood has done its work, when illusions have lost their authority, when Christ's awareness has been preserved, and when it's time for life to re-emerge in a new way. Genesis 8 is not about starting over. It's about learning how to live again without losing yourself. This chapter shows us what happens after awakening. When the noise settles, when clarity returns, and when awareness finds solid ground. So, as we enter Genesis 8, we are not looking for drama. We are listening for stability, integration, and quiet restoration. Now, let's read the text. Genesis 8:1, and God remembered Noah. God remembered is awareness stabilizing, truth coming fully online. Noah is Christ's awareness preserved. Remembered here is not forgetting before. It means recentering. Meaning, truth settles back into conscious awareness after inner upheaval. In everyday life, after emotional flooding, something clicks. You feel grounded again. Peace returns, quieter, deeper, steadier. You are not confused anymore. You know where you stand. And every living thing in the ark, living things here are thoughts, instincts, emotions preserved by truth. Ark is aligned inner state. Meaning, everything real within you survives awakening intact. In everyday life, this is where you realize your compassion is still there. Your creativity didn't die. Your personality didn't vanish, only distortion left. And God made a wind pass over the earth. Wind or spirit here is breath, movement, gentle activation. Earth is lived experience. Meaning, spirit gently reanimates life after cleansing. In everyday life, this is where motivation returns naturally. You feel ready to live again. Genesis 8:2, the fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped. Fountains of the deep here is subconscious release. Windows of heaven is intense revelation. Stopped is moderated, integrated. Meaning, the overwhelming phase ends. Truth no longer floods, it stabilizes. In everyday life, this is where there's less crying, less emotional volatility. Insight becomes calm knowing instead of constant downloads. Genesis 8:3, the waters receded continually. Waters here represent emotional and mental intensity. Receded is gradual settling. Meaning, integration takes time. In everyday life, you don't snap back overnight. Clarity deepens slowly. You become comfortable in your new awareness. Genesis 8:4, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. Ark rested is awareness stabilized. Mountains is elevated understanding. Ararat is sacred high ground, clear perspective. Meaning, truth finds solid footing within consciousness. This is where you stop questioning your awakening. You trust it. Your inner world feels firm. Genesis 8:5, the tops of the mountains were seen. Top of the mountain here is new insight, higher truths, seen, recognized consciously, meaning clarity emerges above old patterns. This is where you can now articulate what happened to you. Language returns. You understand yourself better than ever. Genesis 8:6, at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark. 40 days here is full refinement. Cycle completed. Window opened is re-engaging perception, meaning awareness cautiously reopens to the world. In everyday life, this is where you re-enter conversations, but selectively. You engage life again, but wisely. You don't rush exposure. Genesis 8:7, he sent out a raven. Raven here is old survival-based thinking. Went to and fro is restlessness, meaning ego-based patterns are tested but find no grounding. In everyday life, this is where old habits knock. Old fears whisper, but they don't land anymore. You see them and let them pass. Genesis 8:8, he sent out a dove. Dove here symbolizes peace, pure perception, spirit-led awareness. Meaning, truth tests whether life is ready to re-emerge. In everyday life, this is where you check in with yourself. Am I ready? Is this aligned? You trust intuition now. Genesis 8:9, the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. No rest means timing not yet complete. Meaning integration isn't finished yet. In everyday life, this is where you sense you are not ready to fully move forward. You return inward instead of forcing progress. This is wisdom. Genesis 8:10, he stayed yet another 7 days. 7 days here is completeness, patience, meaning truth waits until alignment is complete. In everyday life, this is where you stop rushing healing. You let things ripen. Genesis 8:11, the dove returned with an olive leaf. Olive leaf here is peace restored, life renewed. Freshly plucked here means new living truth, meaning new life is now sustainable. In everyday life, this is where you feel joy again, clean joy. Hope feels safe. You trust life. Genesis 8:12, the dove did not return again. Did not return means awareness fully externalizes again, meaning you can now live from truth outwardly. In everyday life, you are not hiding in the ark anymore. You live openly without fear of losing yourself. Genesis 8:13, the waters were dried from the earth. Dried here means no emotional flooding remains. Earth is daily life, meaning life is now clear ground again. This is where triggers no longer control you. Life feels simple. Genesis 8:15-16, go forth from the ark. Go forth means live from integrated awareness. Meaning, truth is now meant to be lived, not hidden. In everyday life, you don't preach, you embody. Your presence speaks. Genesis 8:17, bring forth every living thing. Bring forth here is express truth outwardly. Meaning, truth multiplies through lived expression. In everyday life, this is where your life naturally influences others without effort. Genesis 8:18-19, every beast went forth. Beast here means instincts now ordered. Kind, healthy differentiation. Meaning, all inner parts function harmoniously. In everyday life, this is where you feel whole. Nothing is suppressed or dominant. Genesis 8:20, Noah built an altar. Altar here is inner acknowledgement, gratitude. Offering is alignment, not sacrifice. Meaning, awakening results in gratitude, not fear. In everyday life, you feel thankful, not indebted. You honor truth inwardly. Genesis 8:21, the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Soothing aroma here is harmony, alignment. Smelled is recognized, affirmed. Meaning, alignment pleases truth, not suffering. This is where you feel at peace with God, not afraid of Him. Genesis 8:21, I will never again curse the ground. Ground is lived experience. Never curse here is no condemnation. Meaning, truth does not punish awakened life. In everyday life, this is where you stop expecting punishment. Fear dissolves completely. Genesis 8:22, seed time and harvest shall not cease. Seed time here is insight planted. Harvest is lived fruit. Meaning, life now flows in rhythm. In everyday life, this is where you trust process. You live patiently. Genesis 8 reminds us that awakening is not meant to leave us suspended forever. Truth clears, but it also settles. Illusion dissolves, but life continues. The Father does not flood consciousness and walk away. He remains present until awareness rests on solid ground again. If Genesis 7 was the cleansing, Genesis 8 is a reassurance. Nothing real was lost. Nothing true was harmed. And what remains is a life that can now be lived in alignment, without fear of returning to forgetfulness. This is not survival, this is restoration. Genesis 8 showed us the waters receding. This is truth settling, clarity returning, and awareness finding solid ground again. But after awakening, a deeper question always arises. Will I lose this? Can I fall back into forgetfulness? Is this stability permanent? Genesis 9 answers that question. This chapter is not about new rules, punishment, or divine restraint. It is about assurance. Genesis 9 reveals a Father who does not merely awaken consciousness, He secures it. What unfolds here is not a contract God makes to control humanity, but a covenant God establishes to calm the human heart. A reassurance that truth will not abandon you, that awakening is not fragile, and that alignment is not temporary. So, as we enter Genesis 9, we are not listening for commands. We are listening for stability. This is the chapter where fear is finally laid to rest. Now, let's read the text. Genesis 9:1, and God blessed Noah and his sons. Blessed here is affirmed, empowered, established. Noah is Christ's awareness. Sons is expressions flowing from awareness. Meaning, awakened awareness and everything flowing from it are affirmed by truth. In everyday life, this is where you stop feeling like awakening is risky. You feel supported by life itself. There's confidence instead of anxiety. Be fruitful and multiply. Fruitful is produce life naturally. Multiply is expand truth outward. Meaning, truth is meant to be lived and expressed, not hidden. In everyday life, This is where your life begins to reflect alignment effortlessly. Your presence carries weight without preaching. Genesis 9:2, the fear of you shall be on every beast. Fear here is recognition of authority. Beasts represent instincts, impulses, old survival patterns. Meaning, awakened awareness governs instincts. Instincts no longer govern awareness. In everyday life, this is where you still have impulses, but they don't control you. Fear-based reactions lose power. Genesis 9:3, every moving thing shall be food for you. Food here is nourishment, integration. Moving things is experiences, instincts, emotions. Meaning, nothing in life is forbidden anymore. Everything can be integrated consciously. This is where you stop fearing emotions. Even difficult experiences teach and nourish growth. Genesis 9:4, but flesh with the life thereof, the blood you shall not eat. Blood here is life force, identity. Not eat here is not absorb falsely. Meaning, do not confuse instincts with identity. In everyday life, this is where you experience emotions fully without becoming them. You don't identify with fear, anger, or desire. Genesis 9:5, surely your life blood I will require. Require here is honor, preserve. Life is divine life, meaning truth values life, not punishment. This is where you respect your inner life deeply. You no longer violate yourself to please systems. Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds man's blood. Man here is consciousness. Blood is life force. Shed, deny or devalue. Meaning, to deny divine life in yourself or others fractures awareness. This is where you stop dehumanizing yourself or others. Shame-based self-talk ends. Genesis 9:6, for in the image of God made he man. Image is shared nature. This reaffirms Genesis 1. The image was never lost. This is where you stop questioning your worth. Identity stabilizes. Genesis 9:7, be fruitful and multiply. Repeated. Repetition is reinforcement. Meaning, truth emphasizes permanence. This is where you trust your awakening isn't temporary. Genesis 9:8-9, I establish my covenant with you. Covenant here is inner assurance, not contract. Establish is make firm. Meaning, truth binds itself to awakened consciousness. This is where you stop fearing abandonment by God. You feel secure. Genesis 9:10, with every living creature. Living creatures here is all inner faculties. Meaning, no part of you is excluded from grace. This is where you no longer reject parts of yourself. Genesis 9:11, never again shall all flesh be cut off. Never again is permanence. Cut off, lose stability. Meaning, awakening will not undo itself. This is where you stop fearing relapse into old identity. Genesis 9:12-13, this is the token. I set my bow in the cloud. Bow here is tension resolved. Cloud is lingering confusion. Set, permanently placed. Meaning, truth leaves a reminder within consciousness. In everyday life, even when doubt arises, something inside you remembers truth. Genesis 9:14-15, when I bring a cloud, I will remember. Cloud, moments of uncertainty. Meaning, truth remains faithful even when clarity dims. This is where temporary confusion doesn't undo awakening. Genesis 9:16, the bow shall be in the cloud. Bow here, inner reassurance. Meaning, there is always a reminder of alignment available. This is where peace returns quickly after doubt. Genesis 9:17. This is the sign of the covenant. Sign is awareness marker, meaning awakening leaves an internal witness. This is where you know when you are aligned. No external validation needed. Genesis 9:18-19. The sons of Noah. Sons here means differentiated expressions, meaning life resumes in diversity, not fragmentation. This is where you live fully in the world without losing awareness. Genesis 9:20. Noah began to be a husbandman. Husbandman here is cultivator. Vineyard is life experience, meaning awakened awareness engages life creatively. In everyday life, this is where you build, create, and enjoy life again. Genesis 9:21. He drank and was uncovered. Wine here represents joy, vitality. Uncovered is vulnerability, meaning awakening doesn't remove humanity, it integrates it. This is where you allow yourself joy without guilt. You remain aware even in vulnerability. Genesis 9:22. Ham saw the nakedness. Ham here is lower perception. Seeing nakedness is misinterpreting vulnerability, meaning unawakened perception shames what it doesn't understand. In everyday life, this is where some people misread your freedom. Genesis 9:23. Shem and Japheth covered. Covering here is Anna, protection, meaning awakened perception protects dignity. In everyday life, this is where you learn who is safe with your truth. Genesis 9:24-25. Noah awoke and knew. Awoke is clarity restored, meaning awareness recognizes distortions without shame. In everyday life, this is where you respond wisely, not reactively. Genesis 9:26-27. Blessings pronounced. Blessing here is alignment affirmed, meaning awareness establishes order among inner faculties. In everyday life, this is where your inner world becomes ordered and peaceful. The covenant is not restraint, it's reassurance that truth will always preserve what is real in you. Genesis 9 reminds us that the Father does not awaken us only to keep us anxious. He does not restore awareness and then threaten it. The covenant is not God promising to behave better. It is truth, assuring consciousness that what is real will remain. The rainbow is not restraint, it is remembrance. Even when clouds pass through the mind, even when moments of uncertainty arise, there is something within you that remembers alignment. Genesis 9 tells us this clearly. You will not be undone again. Awakening is not a moment you must protect. It is a state that protects you. This is not fear-based faith. This is settled awareness. Now, let's look at the pronouncement of Noah on Canaan, the son of Ham, what we've often called the curse. That's Genesis 9:18-27. Let's look at what Noah said and what it actually means. This passage has been used to claim Noah cursed an entire race. Black people were divinely condemned. But none of that is in the text itself. Those conclusions were projected onto the text. Let's dismantle them by reading what the language is actually doing. Noah is not issuing divine law. Noah is naming a consequence. The text never says, and God said. It says, Noah said. That distinction alone collapses the idea of divine endorsement. What nakedness means in Genesis. In Genesis, nakedness is never about physical exposure. It represents vulnerability, unintegrated awareness, consciousness laid bare without maturity. Adam and Eve's nakedness already established this symbol. So, seeing nakedness does not mean accidental sight. It means perceiving vulnerability without reverence or integration. Let's look at what Ham actually did. Ham did not simply see. The language implies misuse of perception, lack of honor toward awareness, exposure without responsibility. In consciousness terms, Ham represents awareness encountering truth immaturely and externalizing it instead of integrating it. That matters. Let's look at why Shem and Japheth walk backward. This is conscious handling of awareness. Walking backward means refusing to objectify, refusing to exploit vulnerability, covering unintegrated awareness until it matures. They respond with discernment. Ham responds with externalization. Why Canaan is named, not Ham. This is one of the biggest clues that this is not racial. If Noah were punishing Ham, Ham would be named. Instead, Canaan is named. Why? Because this is about what that consciousness produces, not who someone is. Canaan is not a person. Canaan represents consciousness rooted in survival, systems built on domination, identity shaped by fear and exploitation. In other words, unintegrated perception produces controlling systems. That is the curse. What servant of servants mean? This phrase is not divine slavery endorsement. It is descriptive language, meaning consciousness ruled by external forces, lack of inner governance, living at the mercy of systems. It describes a state of being. Why this fits the entire biblical pattern? From Genesis onward, lack of awareness is bondage. Misaligned perception is domination. Fear is control systems. And Scripture's entire movement is from bondage to freedom. If Noah were endorsing slavery, Exodus would contradict Genesis. It doesn't. It resolves it. Noah is not cursing anyone. He is diagnosing a state of consciousness, just as Genesis 3 already did. When we say today, he's a slave to fear, she's trapped in guilt, religion has him bound in shame, they are enslaved to condemnation, we are not talking about chains. We are talking about inner governance. This is the same language Genesis is using. Noah's words are not divine legislation. They are prophetic diagnosis. He is observing that when awareness is mishandled, when perception is externalized instead of integrated, when vulnerability is exposed without reverence, the result is not freedom. The result is bondage producing systems. So, when Noah says servant of servants, he is not prescribing slavery. He is saying this state of consciousness will produce domination and subservience. Just like we say today, fear will enslave you, shame will rule you, guilt will control your choices. Jesus speaks the same way. Everyone who sins is a slave to sin. You cannot serve two masters. Whoever commits sin is a slave. He is not calling people property. He is naming inner captivity. And then he says, if the Son makes you free, you are free indeed. Not politically, not legally, internally. When scripture speaks of slavery, it is not endorsing ownership of people. It is naming what happens when fear, guilt, shame, and condemnation govern consciousness. And Noah is diagnosing that condition exactly as Genesis 3 already did. Once that lens is restored, God is not cruel, scripture is not immoral, and freedom becomes the consistent heartbeat of the entire story. Not slavery, liberation. Let's look at what it means by Ham is the father of Canaan. It says, and the sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. This line is not casual. If this were normal genealogy, it would be redundant. But Genesis inserts it before anything happens. Why? Because the text is flagging what Ham produces. Canaan, as we said earlier, is not a person here. Canaan represents what a certain consciousness gives birth to. In scripture, to be a father of something means to be the source of a mode of being. So the text is saying, Ham's way of perceiving produces Canaan. That matters more than Ham himself. It says Ham is a younger son, yet already a father. It says again, no one knew what his younger son had done unto him. This creates a deliberate tension. If Ham is the youngest, why is he already named as a father? Why are Shem and Japheth not described this way? Because younger here is not age. Younger means immature awareness, undeveloped perception, consciousness not yet integrated. So, Ham is younger in awareness, but already producing outcomes. That's exactly how unawareness works. It acts before it matures. It reproduces consequences quickly. It generates systems before wisdom stabilizes. What Ham did, not seeing, but mishandling awareness. Genesis never says Ham accidentally saw something. The issue is not vision, it is how perception was handled. Ham externalized vulnerability, exposed what should have been integrated, turned awareness into spectacle. Shem and Japheth move backward, which is non-objectifying perception. They cover, which is integration. They refuse to exploit exposure. This is two modes of consciousness responding to awareness. It says, "Curse be Canaan, not Ham." This is the loudest clue of all. If Ham were being punished, Ham would be named, but instead Canaan is named. Why? Because the Bible is not contradicting itself. Scripture elsewhere says, children shall not bear the sins of their fathers. So this is not punishment, this is diagnosis. What curse actually means here? A biblical curse is not cruelty, it is naming consequence. So, curse be Canaan means the product of this consciousness will result in bondage. Not I hate you, you are rejected, you deserve harm. But this mode of being produces servitude. That's why the phrase is, a servant of servants shall he be. This is not God endorsing slavery. It is Genesis saying, unintegrated awareness always becomes enslaved to systems it creates. Fear creates fear-based systems. Shame creates controlling structures. Unawareness produces domination and subjugation. Genesis 9 is not about racial curse or divine endorsement of slavery. It is a symbolic diagnosis showing that unintegrated perception produces systems of bondage, a condition the entire biblical story is devoted to healing and reversing. Once that is seen, the contradictions vanish. God remains consistent, and slavery collapses as misinterpretation. Not divine cruelty, consciousness being named so it can be healed. As we close Genesis 7, 8 and 9, it's important to pause and notice what has actually taken place. Nothing essential was destroyed. Awareness was not wiped out. Life was not abandoned. What was overwhelmed was distortion. The flood was not divine rage, it was life reclaiming coherence. Water did not come to punish, it came to cleanse perception. The ark was not an escape from the world, it was a preservation of what is real while false governance dissolved. And when the waters receded, life did not return as it was before, it returned reoriented. That's why Noah stepped into a renewed world. That's why rest becomes central. That's why a covenant is given, not as a threat, but as assurance. The rainbow is not God promising to restrain anger. It is life, affirming its own faithfulness to restoration. Genesis 7 to 9 are not about what God will do to humanity. They are about what life does for wholeness when ego can no longer lead. And that pattern hasn't changed. Whenever distortion overwhelms perception, life creates space for reset. Whenever ego exhausts itself, awareness is preserved. Whenever fear collapses, clarity emerges. This is not ancient history. It is an inner truth we encounter again and again. Genesis is not warning us about destruction. It is reassuring us about restoration. And as we move forward, we will see this same reading continue from Noah to Abraham, from fear to trust, from ego to awareness. For now, let this settle. Life does not punish. Life restores. And awareness, once preserved, always finds its way back to the surface. This is all I have for you today. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next session. Have a good one.
I've been carried by your whisper through the chaos of my mind. You remind me who I am when the world pulls me outside. In the stillness you awaken what my